you very much. How how is everyone? Murag serious man kaayo ato ang mga participants. Okay? Sige. Probably later on I will be giving some gifts no sa mga active kaayo nato nga participants. Okay? How about that? Ganahan mo ana? I have some items here I can show you so that some of you can also will be very excited. I got this. Pamain naman dyan. Pamain sa mga atong mga unsa ni kaning gasunod nato din no. I have this particular. It's a watch disinfecting container. You can actually wear this one and you can actually put some alcohol and probably some sanitizer that you can actually just push and press no instead of bringing alcohol containers with you. Okay, so naatay pa raffle later on. Di siya pa raffle. Huwag na mo answer sa atong question. We will be giving out some very exciting prizes today. So how about that? Sige. Let's try to start our discussion today. I have 500 slides. Kaya ninyo? Nakatawa sila, 500 slides. Bitaw, I have 73 slides, but these are just very short and sweet presentations. So I will be discussing this morning the journey of writing research from the research proposal until the research writing. Okay, so I am very much honored na nagkita na gid mi sa inyong dean maskin virtual lang siya. I miss my friend. So I think this is the negative side of the pandemic that we cannot see each other physically. But the good thing also of pandemic is that we can just see each other anytime we want through virtual thing. No, so today I hope that you will be able to learn something from the research proposal journey until the research writing. Okay, so I will be sharing also the notes through your Google Classroom through Ma'am Shali. I have promised her to provide a copy of my PDF file para dili kayo mo magsigig sulat. What you're going to write today are the most essential part that you think and you feel that are actually important in writing your paper. So let's understand, why do you have to do research proposal? Ano mag-research proposal mang yun? Okay, until the research writing. Sa pinaka-last will be your research defense. Okay, next please. So why do we do research proposal? This is the only way that we can actually communicate the details of our research. Okay, we are trying to tell the readers, and what we are going to do here is to try to convince a panel, because there is going to be a panel who will be sitting in front of you kung naapata sa normal unta nga scenario, who will be listening to your pitch, no? What you are going to sell them. In our case, we will be selling our research. You have to convince the panel. In our case, we usually have a 3-man panel. So convincing is the key here. Next slide, please. So there is a power of convincing. You need to have that power to convince the panel and your reader that they will actually agree with you nga, oh sige, kung dili na bitaw makapugong ang atong panel nga, sige, ato na lang i-approve. Kaya marag nindot gid kaayo ang ilahang research. Okay? So, we want that particular feeling. There are 3 very important elements in writing your research. Make sure that it is actually crystal clear and it is well defined. Okay? So meaning to say, ikaw mismo, you as a writer or you as a group of writers are actually convinced that what you are trying to convince the panel is clear enough for them to understand, no, and comprehend, and it is well defined. And make sure that your research is actually well justified, it has to be unique, and it is supposed to be worthwhile. No, so I can remember when we had a travel with Dr. Aquino going to Ozamis, bato siya, when we visited a school. And then I think most of the time our conversation was actually lodged talking about this particular grass. No, nga gusto kid niya nga studyhan because of the antimicrobial effect man kahato siya. And these are just common grasses that you can see around. Is that unique? Are there other studies that are conducted already? So I find it so uniquely nga gitouch siya ni Dr. Aquino. So as a researcher and as a writer, make sure that you have this ability to actually think of what are some very important researches that are considered to be unique. Not necessarily something that is new, but something that is unique. Probably you can scale up previous studies na medyo kulang tingali ang ilahang naa sa ilang methodology, and then make sure that when you decide that this is the topic that you wish to venture into, that it is worth while. It's worth the money, it's worth the time, it's worth the away of your group. I tell you already this time. Okay, nga na mga lalis na nagkatawa na si Michelle Ortega, di ba? Feel na ni mo, Michelle, no? And research is supposed to be realistic and achievable. Never, never, ever think of something that is quite quite achievable, but sometimes it is not realistic, especially now that we are in the pandemic. There is a sudden shift in our mindset. What kind of research are we going to venture into since we will be confined in our homes? For sure, si Dr. Aquino will not allow you to go to the hospitals or even in the community. Dili gali siya makatabok from Cebu, right? So that's it. Think about that. What types of researches are you going to venture into since we are in a pandemic? So these are our guide questions. Is it clearly defined? Is it worth doing? Is it worth my time? Is it worth the money? Is it worth the walang tulugan? Is it worth the away with my co-groups? Okay. And is it doable? So if the answers are, you can tick yes, 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 yes. So that means to say that go ahead. Okay. See you next slide. So this time we will be discussing about how to write a winning proposal. O, di ba, winning proposal, positive lang yun ta. It is my objective that after this particular talk, everyone will love research. No? Kana bitong, dili na ko gusto nga matulog og dugay kay pag og gusto mag-research na ko. Ana, unta dapat ang ato um, ang sala ni attitude na karon. O, di ba? Arian, nag-smile si Arian. Naatingali na feeling si Arian about that. Okay, so first and foremost, you have to check about the university format. It is very important that you know the university format or else magpataka ra niya tag sulat, magbalik-balik onyata. Now, this is an example of a university format. I have asked the permission of April Saldivar, who was my student in thesis writing one, and actually the advisee of no less than Dr. Prado. Okay, so under na ko siya sa thesis one, pero yung advisor kasi Dr. Prado. Um, this is her master thesis paper. Okay, so if you can you minimize it, Sir Hertz? If you can see that, it's actually a format that the university is actually employing. So there is a format, and you don't have to make it. All you need to do is actually receive the template. I will be sharing to you the template in your Google Classroom through Miss Shally. And what you're going to do is just change everything in the template. It's a template. So all you need to do is just place the information in that particular manner. Okay? Why? Because our format is standardized, meaning to say every college and including the School of Graduate Studies is actually using this particular format. So it's a format. It's a format that we need to actually use. Okay, next slide. Um, Even that one, we can enlarge this one, Sir Hertz. Even this one, there is already a format for the table of contents. Unsay sunod-sunod. So by just looking at that, you can already see, this should be the content of our research paper. O sa ayan lang kayo sana siya idibdib. Okay? Later on, because it's a journey. It's a journey that you have to be excited about. Okay. So I am just showing you the format. Next slide. Okay, so this is the format of the introduction. We can actually maximize this, Sir Hertz. Notice that from because it is a template, there is already a margin. Okay, so all you need to do is to actually um, type or key in all the information and the content of your research paper from the introduction from chapters 1 down to chapter 5. Okay, so notice that chapter 1 is actually written in bold but not capital letters. Okay, it's the problem and its scope in capital letters. So everything is actually provided to you in a template. So all you need to do is just place a context. So content. So lisod ba? Di ba dili? Everything is provided. So all you need to do is to just follow the format. Ang ato na lang dayong problemahon is ang content. Okay. So if you can also notice that the first page, can we enlarge this one, Sir Hertz? If you can notice that the first page do not contain the page number. Okay, imanin na siya ninyo. It's a red flag. So the first page should not contain a page number, but it is treated as page 1. The following page after the beginning of the chapter should now contain the page number, and it is numbered as 2. Now, so for example, your chapter 2 is supposed to be page 15, so there is no writing of page 15. But what we will see is the next um, page, which is page 17, something like that. Okay, so the rule is every beginning of the chapter, do not put a page number. Okay, next slide. Sige. And then, if we can also look into that, um, try to see how the figure is actually presented and how the phrase figure and the title of the figure is also written. Although later on, I will be discussing that one in a much more detailed discussion. But nevertheless, what I am trying to show to you here is that the university is actually implementing a university format. The university format will be shared to you in a form of a template. It's in a Word file so that you can actually just edit it and then place all the contents that is supposed to be placed as part of your research proposal and even until the research final writing. Okay. Sige, next slide. Now, just like cooking, there are necessary ingredients for the winning paper. So in writing the winning paper, we have to think about some very important ingredients. So ingredient number 1. So we have the working title. So it's a working title, ladies and gentlemen. If we are talking about the working title, it is something that it is not final. 'Di ba? Pareha sa inyong relasyon. Dili pa na siya final. Okay? So meaning to say, do not be so attached with the working title. Kay basig makigpatay ka sa imong working title nga, and even up until the end in your final defense, that working title can actually change depending on the suggestion and recommendation of the panel. And if you are so attached sometimes with your working title or even with the content, makiglalis ka sa imuhang unsa ni panel. That's not supposed to be that. Okay, so the panel is there to help you review the content of your study, and then help you give better recommendations and suggestions to better your study. Okay, so this is actually the working title of April. So the working title of April is the knowledge, attitude, and compliance on child immunization among mothers in Kauswagan, Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines. So that's the working title that she submitted to me. And then April was not so attached with that, because at the end of her final defense, it was actually, what's this? Change into a more concrete and direct um, title. Again, working title can change. Ayaw dibdiba if there are going to be changes along the way. Sige, next please. Now notice in the working title that the working title already communicates what the research is all about, right? Diba, Cassandra? If you are just going to read on the title itself, you have already the idea. Can we go back, Sir Hertz? We have already an idea that April would like to know about child immunization, and that she wants to know about if the mothers have knowledge, what are the or what is the attitude of the mother towards child immunization. Are they compliant on the child immunization? And you can already see, she's going to conduct the study in Kauswagan, Cagayan de Oro, Philippines. So that particular title can already catch the reader and can already actually ignite the interest of the reader to, uy, murag something lagi ni siyang I need to read about. Okay, so next slide. Now, in writing your title, it was actually discussed by Dr. Prado that there is a need for you to think about the broad topic. And in the case of April, the broadest topic, okay, is actually immunization. And there are so many types of immunization. And one of the focal topic of immunization is child immunization. So April actually focuses on just child immunization. And she would like to have it at Kauswagan, Cagayan de Oro. And na-discuss siya kaganina ni Dr. Prado that it's actually either qualitative or quantitative. April is actually venturing into a more quantitative research. Okay, next slide. Now, the second ingredient is actually the introduction and the research problem, which will be discussed what's this in detail in your subject itself. But I will just give you a bird's eye view of how we are going to write our introduction and our research problem. And I will just take, but an I continuation bitaw, I will be taking the study of April. Next. Tessa, we have somebody. Hello?
Yes, Sir Eds. We can hear you.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, there you go. Sige. So next slide, please. In the introduction, sorry. In the introduction, let's go back, Sir Hertz. Okay, in writing the introduction, there has to be a funneling. So when we say funneling, in writing your introduction, you start from the broad overview. In the case of April, the broadest overview, if I will use the word broadest, okay? The most broad overview will be attacking in writing about immunization in a world's perspective. Okay, so mag-start si April. April actually started discussing the view on immunization on children in a world's perspective, and then narrow it down to Asia, and then probably narrow it down to the Philippines, and then narrow it down to Region 10, and then narrow it down to Cagayan de Oro City. So you see how you're going to write your introduction. It has to be in a manner that is an inverted pyramid. No, sa pinakadako until sa pinakagamay, it becomes from broad to narrow focal topic. Okay, so that's how you're going to write your introduction. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the introduction, there has to it has to contain also the justification. So why do you want to study about this? Why the interest? Okay, so there are some justifications that you can actually make use of. Number one is that there is no research in the country or in the field. So it's novel. No, wala coronavirus. Novel lang siya. No, nga windang tatanan. Okay? So do you think it's a novel? Are we trying or are we attempting to create to venture into a new, an original research, which I think is really very hard. If that's not the case, or that's not our justification, we can go into another justification. Other justification could be the existing researches related to the study that you would like to venture is actually outdated. Like 10 years ago was the last, or 5 years ago was the last, or perhaps you want to include some variables. Okay, the last justification, you should be very careful in treating this one, because you cannot question the methodological issues of other studies unless it is really very obvious. Okay, let's say for example nga, um kinahanglan tingali nga atong padak-on ang sample. I would like to venture into a similar study, but this time I will be using a larger number of subjects or probably respondents, so on and so forth. Okay, so those are the three most common justifications that you can actually include in writing your introduction. Okay. And then this was discussed by Dr. Prado. There has to be the objective of the research, and in our case, the format of the university requires a research problem, not a research objective. When you write your statement of the problems, it is not in an objective form. But for you to be able to go on with your research, you have to actually think of an objective. What are you trying to study? So in the case of April, April would liked na de, to determine the level of knowledge, attitude, and compliance and child immunization among mothers in Cagayan, in Kauswagan, Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines. Now, you can easily just turn this one into a question. Next slide, please. No, the objective can actually be converted into a question form, which the university requires the undergraduate research. So you just turn your objective into a question form. Like, what is, you now ask, what is the level of knowledge, attitude, and compliance and child immunization among mothers in Kauswagan, Cagayan de Oro City, Philippines? Okay, so that is the format that the university is employing into. So when you write your research, and when you research study, and when you try to formulate your statement of the problems, it is actually in question form. Okay, not in objective form. Okay. So in your study, there is a need for you to be able to be so clear in the scope of your study, unsa man gyud ang reach sa imong study, because your scope becomes a ring fence. When you say ring fence, this will actually just make your study into a focus, into a focal study. If you jump out of the ring fence, you are going to make your life miserable. Di gusto mo ana? 'Di ba? Ayaw apil-apila ang walay labot na sa inyong scope. The scope dictates that what you're going to include in the study are just the things that you have to study about. Do not include the other things. Nya gusto gid ka like nagpanikad gid ka like tsada man unta to siya nga i-appeal, you might include that one as part of your variables, or you can suggest that one as part of your recommendation. Di ba na atay recommendations at the end of our study that's in chapter 5? Include that one. Kana bitaw moingon ka nga the researchers recommend that further studies will be conducted using dayon. So naay tuno, no? So ayaw og unsa lang ni siya, ayaw og i-push nga magkagubot ang inyong grupo because of other things that you wish to include but not actually part of your research. Okay, so ring fence, kindly, what's this? Kindly be um, reminded of the ring fence. You call that one as a ring fence. When you say scope, ring fence, oy, kung naaday maglabot-labot nga, ay kanidi siya, mo na din ka sa imong classmate ka, ring fence. Na wala na, ayaw jump off sa ring fence, okay? Gusto man ka nga ma-intact pa ang ato ang grupo. Okay. Next, we have the review of related literature. That's the next third ingredient. That was actually being discussed by Dr. Prado, but this time I will be discussing about the beauty of the review of related literature and how are we going to do about this in terms of the APA format. Okay, next slide. So, what is the function of the RRL or the review of related literature? RRL magid ang tawag sa mga bata ani. Uy, no, dagang maghilak sa RRL. The RRL or the review of related literature is actually our chapter 2 in the format in the university format. So that's chapter 2. So make sure that if you are going to discuss, if you are going to study about something, make sure that you are also reading other studies related to your study. Okay, so in the case of April, she was actually reading lots of studies related to child immunization. Okay? So mga knowledge of mothers, attitudes of mothers, compliance of mothers. Those were the studies that actually were read by April. Now, in our case, pila ka kabuok ang studies ato ang basahon. According to Dr. Aquino, niingon siya nga dapat 500 ka studies. Okay ra ba? Sa inyo ha? Kaya ang magbasa og 500 nga studies, wala ni smile. Oh. Okay. For undergraduate studies, we can actually play between 50 to 100 references or related studies. Okay, so try to now gather, di ba na gipakita ka ganina, Dr. Prado was very, was this kanang, happy to share with you a matrix, no, on how to do it. So, in that particular, let's say for example, your statement of the problem number 1, what are the kinds of studies that you are going to read? Okay. Now, in some cases, you cannot actually download or read the full text, but make sure that you will also be able to capture kutub ra ka sa abstract, but there are links that will actually allow you to communicate with the authors. And mind you, always write the authors, communicate to them through email and ask them, I am so interested with your study. And I would like to see if I would like to ask if you can share with us the full text of your study. These are actually authors. Most of the researchers actually and scientists are willing to share. No, labi na kun mga foreigners nga mga researchers na dili gid na sila magdinalo sa inyo. They are most willing to share their studies, no? I don't know sa mga Filipinos. Dili pa kay ko sure ana, okay? But there are a lot of researchers who are willing to share their studies. And then you have to your RRL will be able to actually present a gap, and it can actually also convey the research design that you're going to use in your study. That was actually discussed by Dr. Prado a while ago. Now, the function of the RRL is not to limit the positive results of other studies. Let's say, for example, si April was actually looking into the compliance of the mothers. Now, there are studies that would say that mothers are compliant, Filipino mothers are compliant about immunization in children. But there are also studies that would say, no, Filipino mothers are not very compliant with immunization. Am I going to use both studies as part of my RRL? The answer is yes, because that is so what's this? That is so important in the analysis of your results. Remember that your review of related literature are the studies that will support um, the data that you will actually collect during your writing of your chapter 4. Okay? So katong sa analysis of your data, kinahanglan nimo, you actually need all those review of related literature. Again, pila galito siya kabuok? You play between 50 to 100. Maayo in taon og 5 ra kabuok, nya napulo ra siya kabuok. Okay, the studies that we are talking about are the most recent studies. What are the most acceptable studies when we say recent? How recent is recent? That is supposed to be between 2010 to 2020 nga studies. So do not read studies that are actually beyond or unsa ni siya, before 2010. Okay? Unless these are theories and models, no? Kato na, ito yung mga theories nga 1954 na wala pag-ibago nga mga theories related to that. Ato na siyang gamiton. Let's say, for example, kang Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? Wala pa may nag-study about that nga, uy, napulo, nakabuok ang level sa hierarchy. Okay? So, if there is that, that's the most recent. But the most popular is actually Abraham Maslow. So, can I use that one as part of the review of related literature, or probably in the discussion of the models and theories? The answer is yes. So, sir, 1954 pa man siya. It's okay because that is actually the existing model or theory. Okay, nasabtan siya. Let's move. So, mga kaigsuunan, in taon na ako'y hangyo sa inyo ha, never use the copy-paste culture of the Filipinos. Di ba? Are you guilty or not guilty? Bisigid daw, bantay lang mo. Ang guilty, bitaw. Because most of the time, you just copy and paste, right? Padagan nila, abot gi siya 100, yes, 100 naging siya kabuok. Ako ang review of related literature. Remember that the review of related literature should actually be written according to how the variables are presented in your schematic diagram. That will be discussed probably in your lecture sa inyong classroom. But remember that when you use the studies as part of your review of related literature, you should actually synthesize that. Do not just copy and paste, because that is not how your review of related literature should be written. The review of related literature is not a descriptive writing. Na because matempt ka nga i-describe nimo ang mga mga studies, imo siyang i-copy paste. And remember, our office is a plagiarism software nga mo detect siya. And then, kung ma-detect niya nga imo ra siyang gi-copy and paste, mabalik kina sa imo ha, because we have a 90% what's this? Passing rate for the plagiarism. So if you do not reach the 90% originality, that means to say nga ibalik na sa imo ha, and then you have to rewrite. So make sure that you are rephrasing, no? Rephrasing how you understand the context of the study, and then use it as our study. Let's say, for example, na I-study si Dr. Aquino, giingon ani niya pag-istorya, pag-write ni mo niya should be written on how you understood the concept of Dr. Aquino in your in your review of related literature. But later on, I will also show you, nga, sir, what if there are very beautifully written words already? Nga, di ko gusto nga, gubaon ako siya. Gusto na ko gid siya nga hulamon. You can actually do that. But we need to be very careful. Next slide. So, next ingredient, number 4, research design or methodology, which was actually discussed by Dr. Prado. Okay, so this is actually chapter 3 of your thesis or undergraduate thesis. Next slide, please. So your research design essentials, which was discussed by Dr. Prada, it has to contain the philosophy, the methodology, the sampling, pila ka book inyong sampling, or how many respondents are we going to use, and what formula are you using to arrive into such number of subjects or respondents, the data types, the collection method, how will you kay mag-proposal pang data. How will you collect the data? In our case, we will be very limited to Google Forms and then share it, no? Naarata din ha, we cannot actually go house to house unless na-immune na ka sa COVID. Um, we do not see that one as your manner of collecting the data. So our data collection, think about that. That's why you have to design your study in a manner that it is appropriate for the pandemic, no? Nga dili gid mabutang ni mo ang yung kagalingon at risk. Do not put yourself at risk, okay? And then the statistical technique. So what are the statistical techniques that you're going to use our tool? Will it be frequency? Will it be frequency and percentage? Will it be weighted mean? Will it be Pearson product correlation? Will it be ANOVA? Will it be multiple regression, so on and so forth? Si Sir Doms is so good about that, our next speaker. So abangan ang atong next speaker. Next. Okay, the fifth ingredients kanisha, reference list or the references, mga kaigsuunan, pila gali ito siya kabuok, 50 hangtod sa isa kagatos, no? 50 to 100 references. Okay, if you can do more, why not? Okay, now, when you do referencing, make sure that it is actually written throughout your review of related literature. There are ways on how to do the referencing. So it is in APA format. Okay, so I will be showing you some examples. Now we will be talking about the anatomy of structured references. Sir, kasuko na kay kog anatomy, no? Sa pati sa research ka anatomy of structured references. Okay, now when we do referencing, usually these are the most important requirements, no, in referencing. There has to be the author, there has to be the title, the publication year. In our case, the publication year or the study should be between 2010 to 2020. Publication month and date, the publisher, the city and state of publication, or if it is local or in the Philippines, no, usually city and country, and then page or paragraph numbers. So these are important things. Okay, but if you go online, you can actually see the references. Kana bitang sa online, pangitaan din ninyo din na din siya referencing. Sa referencing, na-din siya yung mga different formats. You just click the APA format, and then the link will actually give you how the references should be written in an APA format. Okay, although I will be showing you in this particular discussion. And there are also other formats, but make sure that the format that you're going to click is APA format. Okay, so kung one author lang siya, it is the last name followed by a comma, and then first name followed by a period. First initial of the first name followed by a period, and then middle initial followed by a period. If there will be two authors, you have how it is written, and then they are actually separated by a comma and then the ampersand. Okay, you know what an ampersand? Kanang and sign. Okay, and then next author will be last name, the same how one author is actually being written. So if it is three, um, they are separated with commas. Now, kanisha, 3 to 7 authors, isulat ni mo tanan. Pero kung naana mo'y napulo ka book authors, what will happen? Kung napulo na ka book authors, ang mahitabo ana niya kay ang first 7 authors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ba? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ang first 6, mora imong isulat na authors. And then comma, and then you do the ellipses kana mga period tulo ka buok. Okay, the periods na tulo ka buok, and then retain the last author. So what happened to the 7th, 8th, ug 9 nga author? Nahimo na lang silang dots. No? Kung napulo mo ka buok ng mga estudyante, gusto ka nga dot na lang ka in the referencing. Di ka maghilak. Okay. Okay, so mga nagi kami, ay, ito, dili yun ako maabot sa 7 or 8 or 9. Bitaw. But in reality, in the referencing dito sa likod ni mo sa references, you will all be acknowledged. Usually the first person that will be written as the first author is actually the primary author. No? Siya ang lead. Next. Okay, sige. So, na ako ipakita sa inyo, this is the work of April. Can we, pwede pa-maximize na to, Sir Hertz? That's how April actually written her, what's this, reference, no? She was actually quoting the works of Grant Chen, Banders Marx, Hillchrist, Leyeka, dayon. Na aday tulo nga ato na lang silang taguon sa pangalan nga dot dot dot, and then Morton, comma 2016. Okay. Sige. Thank you. That's how it is actually written. But for one author or 2 authors or 3 authors or less than 7 authors, you have to include all of them. But later on, kung baliko na dayon siya ni mo og sulat in the subsequent use of the authors, di na dayon ka mo gamit og et al. In the first lang nga gamito nato siya. Okay. So, APA parenthetical citations. So, let's discuss about this. Kaya pa ba sa atong time? It's 9:49 a.m. Okay. Can we enlarge pagid siya, Sir Hertz? Okay, that one. Para mas maklaro nila. Parenthetical citation is actually done this way, like cited. Harlem had many artists and musicians in the late 1920s. This was actually written or coming from the works of Belafonte, 2008, close parenthesis period. So that's how you're going to quote or cite an author, si Belafonte. Or if you want Belafonte to be part of the citation, i-mention mo siya. May din ka, according to Belafonte, Harlem was full of artists and musicians in the late 1920s. Ang year na lang dayon ng imuhang i-butang at the end of the sentence. Nakuha siya? Nasabtan siya? If you try to compare the first and the second lines, it is the same. The idea is the same. But how it is written is different. Nakuha siya? That's how you rephrase an idea. Okay? Is that an original idea? The answer is no. It's a borrowed idea. Whose idea was this? Belafonte. Okay, in 2008. So that's how we are going to cite an author. No? Ayaw intaw na sila kalimti kay ila po nang gihaguan. And in the plagiarism, kung malimot bitaw ka, example ha, wala nimo na cite si Belafonte. Imo na siyang na imo na siyang na write. That's actually included in your research paper. You have actually written that one. The plagiarism detector will actually tell you Belafonte wrote that one in 2008. So mo highlight siya, mapula siya. So what you're going to do is to change. You will make corrections and you cite Belafonte because the plagiarism detector says that it was written, the idea was actually coming from an author. Okay, that's actually the good side of plagiarism detector test. If you feel like hala 75 ra siya na daghan kaayos tanan nga mga wala nimo na cite, use that one as a citation. The software is already telling you that it has to be cited properly. It doesn't mean that you fail, no? It doesn't mean nga bugok ka. Hala, bugok dili ka ba lang mo research? No. What is meant by that is that you failed to cite the authors correctly. So you cite them correctly. So that's the beauty. O dili mahadlok, no? Ayo kahadloki ang plagiarism. Next. Okay, so this is actually parenthetical citation with multiple authors. So this is it. If you have two authors, you drop down their names. Only the family names are used. You say, you see, rallying to restore sanity was a revolutionary undertaking. This was actually from the study of Stewart and Colbert in 2010, enclosed in a parenthesis. Okay, so have you seen this? The ampersand? No, the ampersand is actually used. Okay, now if there are three authors, it can actually be written as Stewart, comma, Colbert, comma, ampersand, Oliver, comma, 2010. Okay, so just that I will actually be um, what's this? Sharing you all this. Now, in the event na gamiton gihapon ninyo, you will actually use in the subsequent paragraphs, in the next paragraphs in your write-up, the same authors from the same study. This time, you drop the other name. You retain the primary author. It will be written as Stuart space at space al and then period and then the year it was written and then close parenthesis period. Okay, that's how you are going to cite. Kabalo na ta? Hoy, excited na sila nga mag-write, no? Gusto na sila nga magsulat-sulat sa mga kuan et al dinhaan mga kamakama. Okay, ampersand, mga ellipses. Okay, next. So, this is how also it is actually being um, accepted, no? Kung diretso na siya, there are studies that will actually require you to use et al. Sometimes you can actually, it's acceptable to use Rothschild space et space al period comma and the year. Okay, next. Now, in cases wherein walay author, no, wala gyud kay makita nga author because you found it in an article or whatever it is. Make sure that you know the title of the article and you can actually write this way. If you place the title of the article in quotation mark, do not italize it. Okay? If you italize it, do not put quotation marks. So duha ra siya. Kung nag-italize gali ka, ayaw na siya i-quotation mark. Kung mag-quotation mark ka, ayaw po siya i-italize. Okay, kay kung nag-italize kanya, nag-quotation mark pa ka, double dead na ang tawag na niya. Na nasubraan ra ka. Okay, so that's the rule. If you use quotation mark, do not italize. If you italize, do not quote. Okay, that's it. Ano na siya? For the APA format. Next slide. And then citing part of the work. Kanina siya. Dili ni nako siya itago ha. Sir, pwede ba gid namo i-quote ang isa ka author using the original text? The answer is yes. We call this one as block quotation. Okay? Block quotation ang tawag natin niya. And again, I several sentences and beautifully written, and you don't want to change anything because it is too beautiful to be changed. So what you're going to do is to actually use in toto or verbatimly, but make sure that you know where you lifted that particular wordings. No? So in this case, it was actually written by Green, comma, 2012, comma, this is very important, the page number. Okay? So the page number is really very important. So you call that one as quotation. Okay? So direct quotation can actually be used. Sir, am I copy pasting? The answer is no. You are citing. Why? Ang copy paste, wala ni mo gi-cite ang author. Ang citing is you actually borrow the exact idea, but this time you attribute it to the author. Wala man kaningon nga imo na, 'di ba? Ningon man ka nga, one of the most memorable quotes is when he says, "You are going to live a good," so on and so forth. Who says that? It's not you. It's Green. And it is written in 2012. And that can be found in page 272. Okay, so that's it. That's how you're going to directly quote. You are not copy pasting, you are citing perfectly a direct quote. Next. Okay, so if we are going to use very common mga agencies bita, what are the most common agencies nga kita in the paramedical profession, like DOH, World Health Organization, or WHO? So first nimo nga gamiton siya, you say World Health Organization, comma, 2011. In the subsequent paragraph, if you will still cite the same author or group of authors or corporate authors, this time you will actually use now the most common abbreviation, which is WHO. Or in the case of, what do you call this? In the case of DOH, or the Department of Health. Can we scroll down a little bit, Sir Hertz? Okay, you see that one? National Association for Advancement of Colored People. In the subsequent what's this? In the subsequent paragraph, gigamit gihapon niya from the same corporate authors, but this time, ang abbreviated form na ang iyang gigamit. Dili na National Association, kundi NAACP. Okay, next. Okay, that's a rule. This time, okay, mga kaigsuunan, kana bitaw na adjoy paragraph nga, tsada kay ni siya, mapagkasulat, and then I want this in my paper. Can I borrow this particular idea verbatimly? Wala ko i-change? The answer is yes. Okay, can we scroll a little down a little bit? That's it, Sir Hertz. We call this one as block quotation. No? Block quotation siya. So, i-indent pa din mo siya, and then wala siya spacing. Usually, our paper is actually written in double space, but this time, wala siya spacing. So what you're going to do is to actually indent pagid siya to the right, and then i-block quote ni mo siya, imugid siyang verbatimly ansala ni siya, directly quote, pero mas dako siya, mas daghan siya. The limit for the direct, for block quotation is actually 40 words only. If you go beyond 40 words, you will now be accused of plagiarizing. Makuha siya? So, 40 words lang ang limit na to for the block quotation. If you block quote it, the plagiarism detector test will actually say, it's block quoted. Okay. So make sure that it has the author, the year it was published, and the page where you lifted the idea. Okay, so excited na ba ang tanan? Next, let's move on. Para sa relasyon, mag-move on gihapon, no? Number 6 ingredient, practicalities. So, what are the practicalities? Next. Okay, so some practicalities, gi-mention ka ganina ni Dr. Prado, there has to be a project plan, the Gantt chart, kano sa man nato ni human noon. Okay? When is your proposal? The proposal is supposed to be somewhere in November or December, right? Kaya ba? And then resource plan for the budget. How much are we going to spend for this? Katura bang daghag kwarta mo rabay mo gasto ani? The risk management, you have to think about the risk management, how you are going to go about the collection of the data, since you will not be able to go out from your houses because we are not immunized yet. There is no vaccine for COVID. And ethical compliance, which will be discussed in details by Dr. Polancos. Next, please. So let's talk about the red flags. Red flags, meaning to say, ato ang timan ano. Next, APA formats. Okay, for tables and figures, let's show the next slide. Okay, ato siyang padakon, sir. Sige pa, let's maximize. So you see how the tables now are being written. Can we scroll down a little bit, sir? Oh, that's it. You see there are no vertical lines anymore. Tables do not have vertical lines. So how it is written, first is the table number, and then next line is your um, table title, and then followed by a line. We call that one as rule. Okay? And then the content of the entire table, and then close it with another rule. So maura na siya ang linya inyong gamiton sa inyong APA format na table. So notice that your actually title is written in italics after the table number. Okay, tagaan ta mo ani og kopya para dili mo mawala. You can actually refer. Now, the minimum number of rules, no lines nga pwede nato gamiton is an opening rule and a closing rule, duhara. But if we can see on the side, atong i-move siya gamay, Sir Hertz, you can also have the maximum number of rules. Like you have the table number followed by the table title and then rule, and then you write the headings of the table, and then another rule, and then the content of the table, and close it with a rule. Okay, so maximum number of rules, 3 rules. Minimum number of rules, 2 rules. Okay, rule or ruler ang tawag na taan niya. Sige, next. Okay, next slide. For figures and charts and graphs. Okay, so can we maximize it? Notice that the figure is actually written below the figure or the chart. Okay, so you have figure 3, period, and then you have the figure 3 is written in italics, and then the title of the figure or the name of the figure is actually written not in italics. Okay, so that's how you write. So ang figure is na sa ubos. Ang tables naa sa taas kung sulato nato siya. Okay, so you just follow these rules para dili nasigi og correctionan. Okay, thank you. Next, please. Okay, so when we number tables, kung nagsunod-sunod bitaw siya, like you have table 1 and then table 2 and then figure, say number sa figure, dili figure 3. Okay, first mama siya nga figure. You have figure 1, table 3, figure 2, table 4, figure, ana siya. So, isunod na to ang numbering sa ato ang tables and figures. Okay. Kana lang siya. Next. So, can we maximize this one? Now, in writing the table number, it's written normally. And then in writing the table title, it is actually written in a title case. When we say title case, and it is italics, when you say title case, the important words, the first letter of the important words are actually written in capital letters. Okay, in this case, you have, kung table ha, kung table, regression, secondary, traumatic, stress, predictors, job, satisfaction, are written in capital letter sa ilang first letter. So you call this one as the title case. No? Sige, title case ang tawag na to. Title case ha. Next. For figures, ang atong gamiton is sentence case. Let's scroll down a little bit, sir. So notice the figure 5 is written in italics and then followed by a period. And then our title of the figure is actually written in sentence case. Okay, meaning to say only the first letter is in capital form. That's it. And then left justified. Wala ni center karon na. All left justified. Maghuot ang dughan ani sa mga unsalan ni mga OCD. Nang gusto kita i-center, na walay center karon na siya sa left. Okay, next. Next slide, sir. Sir Hertz. Okay, while waiting for Sir Hertz, something is wrong. Okay, are you still there? Mga kaigsuunan?
Yes, Doc. Lagi po.
Okay, sige lang. Nipilit. Nipilit. Oo, 500 mo guni siya kabuok. Okay ra? Kapit na ko. Naanak ko sa mga 402 na lang ka-slides. Okay, so there. Let's talk about the red flag. It's the abstract. Next slide, Sir Hertz. Okay, so for the abstract, kaning abstract is the first to be read, but the last to be written. No? Sige, next slide, Sir Hertz. So when we talk about abstract, next slide. When we talk about abstract, the abstract is actually very important in writing our paper because that is actually the window of your paper. Mura bitaw dinha mo li ang imuhang mo peep ang imuhang reader, and then make sure that your abstract is very attractive, that will entice the reader to read from page 1 until the last page of your paper. Okay, so that's the rule. That's the role of the abstract. Next slide. Now, how to write the abstract? Of course, you cannot write the abstract when you do not finish the entire paper because again, it is last to be written. Okay? So, first to be read but last to be written. Now, kung main ko din niyo karon nga, kasi naka-write na sa inyong abstract ko na again mo ingon nga ako hala bakak. Dako ka nga bakako. Next. And then keep it short and simple. 200 words ra. Make sure that you need to count the words. Na akay word count because our office will reject the 201. So what will happen? Nag-write ka og abstract, anya 201 siya. What will happen? Among iuli sa imo ha. Ikay mangita og asa ang isa ka word nga imong tangtangon because it will not be accepted. There is a limit for the abstract. So 200 words for the abstract. Next slide. And then, sa iyang ka 200 words, nga one paragraph na siya, the abstract has actually a structure. It has to contain the introduction, no? And then the situating topic, the objective or the purpose of the study, the results of the study, and the conclusion. Imagine na ka ng mga thesis and mga dissertations sa mga estudyante that will actually amount to around 200 to 300 pages, and you are going to collapse that one in one paragraph that tells already the reader about what the research is all about. It's actually a skill to do an abstract. Okay? So, katong mga maayo kay musulat, katong who are so gifted in writing an abstract that you can actually catch everything will be contained there in the abstract. Share your skill. Okay? So, next slide. So in order for you to be able to write beautifully an abstract, read abstracts from other studies so that you will have an idea, this is how abstracts are supposed to be written. Okay? How many abstracts are you going to read? 50 to 100, because you will be reading 50 to 100 studies. Read their abstracts so that you will also know how their abstracts are written. So, 200 words na ng mga abstracts ha. So, dali na siya basahon. Next. Another red flag, the keywords. So what are keywords? Keywords are very important for you to hit your study online. Kana bitong pag-key-in nila sa word, umugawas ang imuhang study. Okay? So, di ba, your names are searchable, yes or no? Can I see a thumbs up? Kung mo agree mo that your names are searchable. Okay. So unsay naa sa i-search ninyo inyong name bikuno be basig inyo rang FB, no? Facebook, Twitter, mo ra gid social media, no? This time when you publish your paper online, when you search your name, back mogawas ang inyong title sa inyong study. If somebody inyong future nga employer will actually have the chance, no, nga naghatag og application, be search kuning bataa. And then pag search niyo, wow, nag-write di siya antimicrobial effect of the chu-chu-chu-chu. Di ba malipay kaayo ang imuhang employer? Dili kay sa pag-search niya sa imong ngalan kay imong Facebook nga naa nagtagay-tagay imuhang picture. Ginoo ko. Okay? So what are you going to do? What I'm telling you now is clean up your social media, mga kaigsuunan, because that is now one way of your employers to look into, dig in your files. Okay? Mga tsada lang ipangbutang, ang dapat una nga magawas ang atong research. Okay? Because we are academics. Okay? Next. Next, sir. So what are keywords? The keywords are actually those words that you're going to write in order for your study to be a hit, no? Makita siya. So kung pangitaon ang imong study, unsa nga mga words ang imong gamiton? So next. Usually the most common engine that keywords are actually being lodged into are the Google. But in researches, the key the search engine that we are going to go into is the Google Scholar. No, so atong paningkamutan with Dr. Aquino as your editor-in-chief for the advancing pharmacy nga journal. If your research study will actually be published in the advancing journal, once you will key in your name, it will actually appear in the searches sa links ang inyuhan na dayon nga research study. No, dili na lang FB, dili ra Twitter, dili ra Instagram, but this time your studies will actually be searchable. Okay, next, how to carefully choose the keywords and what are the things that we need to avoid. Number one, follow the journal. In the university format, we are requiring five keywords separated by commas. Okay, 5 ra ato aha. Okay, next slide. Think of terms that you would use to search for the paper. If you're going to publish your paper, para ma-hit or makita ng imong paper, unsa nga mga words ang imong gamiton. So these are the keywords that you're going to use in order for your paper to be cited or to be seen by the readers. Next slide, please. And then, by the way, in truth, it's a misnomer to think about keywords. Dili lang words ang atong gamitan. It's actually phrases. Like in the case of April, dili pwede niya nga child, comma, immunization, comma. Dili siya ingana na. Pwede niya gamitan ng child immunization, comma. Mothers of Cagayan de Oro, comma. Marag inana siya. So these are keywords or phrases actually ang atong gamiton. So separated by commas, 5 ka book words or phrases. Next slide, please. And then avoid using your title. Mga kaigsunan na kamita inyong title. Inyong gichap-chap ang inyong title into 5 phrases. Kay dili na gusto nga maghuna-huna. Ni, your title is searchable itself. So think of other words that are actually used and related in your studies for your keywords. In the next slide. It should not be too broad. Because let's say, for example, if your keyword is antimicrobial, so pag i-search mo si antimicrobial, it will actually give so many hits, no? And then ang mauna ana katupad yung mga libro, so dili gid makita ang imong study. So make sure to think about the unique words associated with your study. Next slide. And then be very careful in the capitalization. There is no capitalization if it is not actually for capitalization. And then spelling, ginoon ko basig sa'yo, pang inyong spelling. Dili gid ka ka-search akong study kay wrong spelling man imong gibutang sa imong keyword. Okay? Labi na kita that we are actually using what do you call this? Mga scientific terms or mga usual terms, no? Labi na kung sa mga drug discovery ang gusto nato. Next, please. Use alternate terms. So this is what I am telling you. Let's say, for example, if it is a kind of grass, katong ingon ni Dr. Aquino kaganina. So what is a common term of that grass, and what is the what's the specific term or unique term for that grass in a particular area? So we can actually make use of that. Okay, so make sure that you have alternative terms for that. Next slide. And then test your keywords. Now, before submitting your keywords, you actually test your keywords in the search engine. So, kung ako ni ipang search, kani nga mga keywords, ug daghan gali kayo na, abot siya, 2,000 ka buok na, unsay chances nga makita ang imuha. Diba? So, the fewer the hits, the better is your chance to actually be part of the first 10 or the first 20 or the first 100 in the list in the search engine. Last. And although na ay mga tinapula na gini siya, na ay mga keywords generators ng mga software, but I do not encourage you to do this. So, ako lang siyang i-chika sa inyo ha, but I do not wish for you to do this. So, let's skip that. Okay. And lastly, I have some tips for you. No, I would like to take this opportunity, by the way, to thank your department for inviting us. And your department has actually been very helpful to me, especially during my dissertation. So Dr. Aquino was actually one of my consultants, especially in the drug formulation and especially in the computation of the dosage, diba? Sus Ginoo ko. Iya gid kong gilingkuran ana how how the dilution should be done, how the maceration should be done, how to compute for the drops and everything. Kay kaning akong gigamit nga malunggay was actually my study for the rats as a what do you call this? Anti-radiation or radiation protective effect of the Moringa oleifera, di ba? So, how do you call this? Very instrumental in inyong department, especially when I've done the tanan nga test na sa inyong laboratory, and si Dr. Aquino was so kind in opening the laboratory, your laboratory for me. So, guys, you are actually writing your proposal, going to your paper writing, know your literature, know the 50 to 100 literature that you are using so that you will be well versed in the analysis of your data. Enjoy the process. Naay away nga mahitabo, but make sure that it's going to be just part of strengthening your relationship with your group mates, and then always refine your documents. Remember that it is a work in progress, so nothing is final unless it is already in the book. Okay, so with that, I would